All right. Why don't we get started? Waiting for a few more people to join us, but they can jump in when they get here. Hi, my name is Ken Evans. I'm the managing director of the Tampa Bay Innovation Center Accelerator program. And I want to thank you again for joining us for today's showcase. We're here to celebrate the 6 companies that have completed cohort number 5 of the program. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I would first like to introduce Chris Paradise from Paradise Law and the chairman of the Tampa Bay Innovation Center to provide some welcome remarks and a little bit of context for today. Thanks, Chris.
Welcome, everybody. I'm the chair, as Ken said, and I'll just be introducing a few people and saying thanks to our sponsors. So thank you, sponsors. Especially Pinellas County has been a long and faithful sponsor for us. And I'd also like to thank our panelists for being on here today and taking their time out of their day. So without further ado, I'll introduce you to Tanya Elmore. She's the president of the Innovation Center. She keeps everything running on a day-to-day basis and also longer than that. And she has been doing this for more years than either of us would like to count, which means she's really good at it. And hiring people like Ken helps, and having great panelists like Mark and Joy also helps a tremendous amount, who have actually been in the trenches with startup companies that have made good exits and are able to ask good questions. So Tanya, I think you're next on the agenda.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And I want to thank you for your fearless leadership as we move into the next generation of the Tampa Bay Innovation Center with our 45,000 square foot facility. Many of you may have read, we just recently added several board members to our board of directors, one being Brooke Evans, who's the founder and CEO of the CFO Alliance, Marvin Scaff, CTO of Mach 49, and Kathy Wood, founder, CEO, and CIO of ARK Invest. And also our current partner on the ARK Innovation Center, where will be our final home for the Tampa Bay Innovation Center. Our other board members have been with us for several years now, making all this a reality for us. Includes Dean Aker with Adject CEO, Roy Binger with Binger Financial, Paul Hayes with Clifton Larson Allen, Rob Capusta with Bacteria Ross, Sean Hughes with Certipath, and of course, Doug Martin and Sean, both. Doug is the founder of Business Consulting Group, have been with us probably since 2010 in our endeavor of getting to a final destination. And of course, all this wouldn't be possible without the panelists, as Chris alluded to, and our team, Ken Evans, the managing director, Mary Rodriguez-Court, and Joan Sacco, who really keep this place running. And keep the rest of us on our toes to make sure that we're doing the things that we need to do. But I'm excited to talk a little bit about the Tampa Bay Innovation Center and the new building. It will be kind of a game changer for our region. We're going to focus on climate tech initiatives and what I call ABCD companies, AI, blockchain, cloud, cyber, data AI, and data analytics. And then med and health tech would include devices and wearables. And so, we're very excited. The overall impact of that center will be about $127 million and thousands of jobs. And with the impact of ARK Invest, that number is now expected to triple or 10x. And so with that, I'll turn it over because we're really here to hear about the great work Ken has done in our Accelerator cohort and helping their startups be successful.
Thank you, Tanya. And I'd like to thank Chris already mentioned some of those sponsors that we have in the program, Pinellas County being our primary sponsor, media partner, Capital Analytics Associates, and our strategic sponsor for the Accelerator program, Tampa Bay Ventures, and all of the community partners that help us along the way, providing us deal flow of companies for the program, providing us support and bringing people to our program, and hyping up and promoting events like today. And of course, all the different speakers that come in as guest speakers and experts for our program. I could not do the program without the deep subject matter expertise and domain expertise that our guest speakers bring to the program. In a wide-ranging set of capabilities covering product, revenue, operations, and leadership. We try to have a balanced program that introduces, especially first-time founders, to the struggle that is starting a startup and going through and building a product, identifying a product, talking to a customer, which is no small task for a lot of first-time founders. So we spend a lot of time making sure that product strategy is at the top of mind of everyone that's coming through the program, and that they are spending time doing customer discovery, really getting to understand the problem space that they're trying to tackle, and figuring out the best, most efficient go-to-market they can come up with, along with the pivots along the way, that will provide them a sustainable, scalable business. So I've been at this for 30, 40 years of introducing new products, especially in the B2B space. And we try to, go through a lot of case studies. We try to go through a lot of what if scenarios. I definitely put the people through the ringer over the last 12 weeks of going through this course, so that they understand the blind spots that they have coming into the program, and where their customer is thinking versus where they might have been thinking about the technology up front. So with that, again, I want to thank the engaged community. This is a team effort of all the different people that come into the program, that show up as guest speakers, that show up as mentors, that help us really put together a program that helps people with their first time efforts of building a new product, not the easy path, but definitely the most tried and true path for coming to market with a new product. So with that, I'd like to introduce the first of the companies that will be before I do that, let me talk about the panelists. I didn't realize that slide was coming up so soon. I did create the deck, but I'm going to have the panelists do a quick intro of themselves. They're going to listen to the pitch from the founder, and then we're going to, should be about 60 seconds or so. And then we're going to have 5 minutes of Q&A for each of the founders. So Mark, would you mind providing a quick intro of yourself? And then Joy, I'll introduce you after that.
Yeah, I'm Mark Swanson. I've started a lot of companies. I've kind of lost count, but I've had 6 exits. And a couple of them pretty good. And I've been doing this for more than 30 years now, so I'm really old. So I don't know if that makes me wise or not.
Joy, how about you?
So a lot like Mark, I've been doing this for a long time. So I exited my 10th company just before COVID. So like whatever time that was at this point. And I've taken a couple of companies public. A lot like Mark, I also invest in startups now. And I don't know, it's fun. I've kind of done pretty much every job except for CFO. And so I always am looking for what's the next new cool thing that's out there. So today should be fun.
All right. And Mark and Joy and Andreas, who should be joining us shortly, are repeat panelists. They've done pretty much every session from the very, very beginning. So I want to thank them again for their continued support of the program. Andreas may be hiding someplace in the audience. I'm going to go and look at the chat room shortly to see if he's down there and bring him up to the panel. But before I do that, I'd like to introduce our first company, Leanne Biafora with Beacon Associates. They're bridging the gap in coverage for cancer care patients and their families. So Leanne, please join us and give us your intro.
Good afternoon. Cancer costs continue to rise at an unsustainable rate for all U.S. payers, including employers, where cancer alone accounts for approximately 15% of an employer's annual medical spend. This equates to $125 billion a year. The reality is the journey is fraught with errors and a whole lot of opportunity for improving patient care. After 30 years of specializing in oncology as a nurse and as an administrator, witnessing patients and families struggle, I set out to improve the journey differently, one that begins with the focus on the patient and a deep understanding of the dynamic nature of the health system, the science, and the journey. Our solution aims to reduce billions of dollars on avoidable complications, waste, and unnecessary hospital utilization. Our remote patient engagement tools, combined with a robust platform we are creating, will allow for scalable integrated delivery of navigation and advocacy services by seasoned oncology nurses and social workers. How it will work is we will use our library of reusable, pre-built service modules to allow seasoned experts to mix and match to curate a better, more personalized cancer care journey for hundreds to thousands of cancer patients and yielding better outcomes. Companies are actively looking for innovative solutions to mitigate their cancer spend, and we believe we are the right solution at the right time. Targeting self-insured employer groups, we believe we can save 25% of the annual spend directly from reducing avoidable costs by proactively identifying and addressing multiple intersecting issues from various different vantage points throughout the continuum. For the last 3 years, we have been working on an off-the-shelf technology, which will help us or has helped us refine our tech requirements. We are now seeking investors who will share our vision to drive and to disrupt the status quo so we can accelerate sales and further develop and automate our delivery platform. This will allow for a scalable delivery of a more personalized and supported cancer care experience while bridging the gaps in the cancer care journey. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Leanne. I appreciate that. Joy, why don't we start with you? Do you have questions for Leanne?
Yes. So good to see you again, Leanne.
Hi.
I do have a couple of questions. So you mentioned, what was the percentage of employer spend on cancer that you gave? Of their
Approximately 15%. I actually just spoke with the CMO of a large brokerage, and they are up to actually 38 in their top spend of stage 3 and stage 4 cancers.
So I understand the issue, and I understand self-insured employers. So I get the problem. Two questions for you. One, how did you come up with the 25% cost savings?
Mm-hmm.
And number two, how are you curating? I mean, I understand it's algorithmic based, but how are you kind of curating this experience with matching the provider against the patient?
Right. So starting with so let's step back for a second. The 25% is really looking at all of the waste, and this is based on a lot of data in papers, and I can certainly, happy to share those numbers and the data of where that waste comes from. We're talking also medical errors that equate for 44,000 deaths per year. But regarding the integrated or the curated experience, how we're approaching it is very different. We're going through the patient, understanding their insurance benefit. We're optimizing their benefits, but we're also understanding how access works in healthcare and being able to kind of help them get through that system quickly, but appropriately, being by their side, guiding them with the right information and the right questions to ask and support them along the journey throughout the early detection. So I'm going to step back and address that in a few seconds. But throughout the whole journey, by their side. But the technology aspects are really what's going to drive the growth of the business. And that's, starting out with data analytics through claims data, right? Identifying opportunities for program and also early detection, being able to capture them early. So that's really the key. That time to treatment is critical, and that is a lot of waste. Then you have not only that, but you have second opinions where it states here 74% don't seek them. And that's a big issue because there's a lot of errors and there's a lot of misdiagnoses that are happening at a higher rate because of pathologies, work shortages, and a host of issues. But the service modules really drive it, and that's using the science with the NCCN guidelines, latest clinical trials. You go to a clinical trials database besides clinicaltrials.gov, and you'll have there's three different companies, and they'll all spit back different clinical trials. So we're trying to curate that so we can have that access to at our fingertips by the patient side, because we realize that there are advisory council there's 5 different types of cancer patients. A PhD is going to look at it very differently than someone that has very limited access to care, that's an underserved population. So we're really curating and focusing on that specific, that personalized experience and their problems.
Thank
Does
you.
that
Yeah,
that
no,
answer it?
that's good. And
All right,
that
thank you.
actually answered the other piece, because now I understand the unnecessary hospitalization piece.
Okay,
So actually
thank
very
you.
good. Thank you.
Mark, questions for Leanne?
Yep. Hey, Leanne. I checked out your LinkedIn bio, and you've been doing this almost as long as I've been an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So is that accumulated knowledge that you've gotten, is that kind of what codified in your solution that that you've seen over the past 30 years almost? And
Indeed.
is that what it is? And your
Yeah.
modular approach, how unique is that in the marketplace? This
I think that well, I'll be honest with you. I started the business 10 years ago for B2C, pivoted in 3 years ago after working for a large payer for 5.5 years, really as a strategist, keeping my handle and finger on the pulse. There's a lot of changes going on in the industry. And actually there's a number of people trying to do what I'm doing now. But, I feel that the problem is you can't just throw technology at it. You have to really understand it from the ground up. And I think that's what differentiates us. We also are, and my personal background or my professional background has been working in case management for large payers, but also large cancer institutions in Boston, where we had, international and national. So all the different payers, and seeing all of the challenges within that structure and the frustrations of individuals navigating the system, because nothing is consistent aside from the Medicare, which has a lot of opportunities in itself. We do hope to grow so we can get into that Medicare space, where we are able to reduce our costs and serve more people. That's really ultimately the goal.
So I had a conversation several years ago with Pat Garrity. He's the CEO of Guidewell Florida Blue. And I asked him this question. I said, if you could change one thing about the healthcare system in America, what would that be? And he answered behavior. Is that what you focus on?
Yes, we do. We do that. We start out with developing trust and really being able to develop that trust, which nurses are very good at. Nurses are especially seasoned that can develop that trust through competence. And then we guide them because we understand the system, but it's also understanding and giving them the tools to be able to, we customize our engagements with their patients based on their needs. So for instance, we have some older people that are great with our technology where we do texting and they're on our online portal, and that's fine. But then there are others that aren't that way. So we have to customize that, and that will be through our learning and operationalizing that behavioral, and then bringing behavioral aspects to, for instance, like smoking cessation is a number of behavioral that is, a number of cancers can be mitigated by lifestyles.
All right. Well, thanks. That was a great answer. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Leanne, thank you very much. I'm going to have Tanya drop you back down to the audience. Thank you for your presentation. And next up, we have, I believe, David. Okay, making sure David's on the line with CBIO, a diagnostic tool used in vaccine development, drug testing, and pathogen detection. David, please join us.
Yes, thank you for your time. You guys can see my screen okay?
You're not supposed to be sharing your screen.
Oh,
there we go. No,
got it.
It's just Tanya's in control of the PowerPoint.
Oh, I see. That makes more sense.
Let's get that back up there. And start whenever you're ready.
Oh, yes. Oh, well, I see the PowerPoint, or how do I?
Yeah, Tanya, can you advance one slide, please? There we go.
But yeah, thanks again for the time today. Want to tell you about a wonderful opportunity in the drug treatment space that actually marries nicely what Leanne just talked about in the space of cancer and other debilitating diseases like Alzheimer's and cystic fibrosis. And it's this new type of treatment called cell therapy, which is where patient material is actually taken, like their white blood cells, modified using gene editing techniques like CRISPR or otherwise, and transforms the cells into cancer-killing material. It's a wonderful solution that actually is a full cure when it works right. And that's the part of the equation that CBio is actually dealing with, that big if. So what you see as a problem is cell therapy, it actually doesn't work very well all the time. If you just type in cell therapy in Google clinical trial results, and you'll hear about a multitude of recalls from clinical trials due to patient deaths and other poor outcomes. And the number one reason for this is cell therapy quality testing equipment actually leads to unreliable outcomes. What we do at CBio is we make cell testing and analysis equipment that gives better predictive power over if the drugs are actually going to work. So I have a PhD in bioengineering, and for my PhD thesis, I made a drug development instrument that's actually used now for cardiovascular disease drug testing. And for my first startup company, I did cancer therapy treatment response monitoring, learned a lot about the challenges associated with managing cancer with treatment, because just because you've been diagnosed with the disease and just because there's a drug that may actually be beneficial to you doesn't mean the actual drug material will work. And so I'm coming full circle with this startup company to actually address the actual drug materials to verify that they work, using well-differentiated hardware that we've developed ourselves as well as licensed from Arizona State University. So in terms of our business model, we have a razor blade model. We sell our customized microscope cell analysis instrument for around $60,000. And we have our consumable $250 that will be used every time a cell therapy patient's drug is made. And so cell therapy as a drug treatment, it's not like taking a Advil or chemotherapy, which are large-scale manufactured products. It's individualized medicine and therefore individualized manufacturing, where every time a patient needs a drug treatment, they have to go through the manufacturing process. We're operating in the very large and growing $5.6 billion global cell therapy analysis and QC market. And we see an opportunity by 2030 to have a lot of returns because of the nature of our cytopathic analysis technology that's non-destructive and allows complete analysis of all of the cells that are intended for treatment.
All right, David, thank you very much. Mark, I'm going to start with you this time. Do you have questions for David? You're on mute, Mark. Thank you.
You have a very interesting business. How diverse is the market? Meaning, like, how many cell therapy manufacturing companies are there around the world?
Oh, actually, it's a large and growing business. And the target customers that we go after are contract development and manufacturing organizations who will take the work instructions for the litany of cell therapies that are on the market and going to be on the market. That's in the 3,000 plus range. And they have to do and implement the work instructions. And so what we're doing is we're providing more accurate testing equipment to replace existing flow cytometric techniques and other dynamic light scattering tools that are used. They don't have the resolution to identify certain features that are causing these failures. I've talked to quite a few. One such company is BioReliance, a subsidiary of Merck, and they have a global footprint. So them adopting our technology isn't one instrument being purchased, it's thousands of instruments being purchased. We also are talking directly with a cell therapy company in the UK that has, for their business model, to actually be as close to the patient's arm as possible for performing the manufacturing and then delivery of the drug. And so they're in the process of setting up individualized sites. Just think about chemotherapy centers, how many there are. That's exactly what is the goal for this individualized cell therapy manufacturing.
And just a quick follow-up question is, we've all heard of Theranos, or however you pronounce it. How the device that you make, what's the process for getting that all certified? Does it have to be FDA certified or compliant, or what? And where are you in that?
Sure. So we do not have to go through the FDA. We are an analysis tool. Talk to many people who work in the FDA. I myself, from my previous startup company, worked on a diagnostic test that has to go through the FDA. So I have a lot of expertise in that. The difference between my company and Theranos, I have a PhD in bioengineering. There's a paper trail, got patents. There's real science behind this. The innovation itself stems from Arizona State University, which we have in-licensed. And what it allows for is using a very interesting electric field approach to interrogate living cells to sort them based on their performance. And so you'll know what you're working with versus assume, which is the current process. That assumption bubble is too large and causes undue and unfortunate outcomes when the unfortunate outcomes happen.
Good answer.
Great. Thank you, Mark. Joy, do you have questions for David?
Yes, and actually, we kind of went through the Theranos thing earlier in this cohort, didn't we, David? It's like, yeah, I actually looked at your background stuff when we had the first conversation. I have a couple of questions around this now. I think what you're doing is awesome. I actually have two very close friends who've gone through this type of therapy, and it has made an unbelievable change in their personal lives. One literally left the United States to go do this in Mexico because of the cost. And she seems quite happy there. So I guess it worked out at the end of the day. Her health is definitely a completely different ballgame now. One of my questions is on the economics of it. So I think that the $250, that's your cost for the consumable, what you're selling the consumable for, correct?
Yes.
So what is the typical cost to the patient on the other side, right? So the business is going to invest in buying the medical unit, and then they're going to have a consumable each time. Each time the patient goes to the therapy, they have their product made, right? So it is made. Is it double that? Is it quadruple that? Is it what's the typical cost today?
Sure. So to give you more color to it, cell therapy average cost, it's in like the $300,000 to $500,000 range for the treatment. It's extremely expensive. Many reasons, recouping the science to make it happen, the manufacturing cost. Where we come in is to actually drive down the manufacturing cost because we provide certainty that existing methodologies don't. So in terms of cost, we're a extremely small fraction of the actual price. Even if cell therapy drops down to $15,000 per treatment, we're still very much below decimal point fraction percentage wise. So, and this is of course the reason I got into this particular business is to actually drive down the cost with technology to the point you're making.
Yeah. So is the goal then, I guess my question is, so if you do that, right, because I understood this, because $250 seems like a drop in the bucket. It's meaningless compared to what my friends have told me they've paid for this therapy, right? So the question would be then, is part of your go-to-market strategy or part of the adoption strategy here, because you're driving the cost down, now it can be, it's more affordable for the typical consumer who might do this, who's paying for it out of pocket, because insurance typically doesn't cover anything. I'm not aware of a policy that covers it. There may be some today. But if you brought it in line and the benefits are there, then it, in theory, would be covered under insurance because it's less expensive than many other treatments that are there. So is that part of the adoption goal?
It is. And just to clarify how we fit into the workflow, we will be a Intel Inside kind of a component. There will be no exposure to the utilization of our equipment for the patient, the doctor, the ordering process. We're a writer on the drug manufacturing protocol, and so whenever that drug is used or ordered, it'll just be a part of that workflow, and so it'll be a seamless integration. Although we want to have price dropped, and this is going to definitely help, we will not influence those decisions. We're not necessarily replacing a flow cytometer like one-to-one, but the same place that the flow cytometer is currently used in this existing quality control workflow, that's where our instrument will also be. And so really where we see our adoption driver is not having a Keytruda pulled from the markets or other types of recent cell therapies and billions of dollars of investment put into the drugs being lost. So pharmaceutical companies have incentive to make sure that the drugs they're putting out are safe. If you've ever seen a drug commercial, a recent one, the last 30 seconds or minutes, take this drug, it's going to cure you. But if you take the drug, it's also going to maybe give you other diseases. We're really talking about with this instrumentation, elimination of side effects, and therefore elimination of those last 30 seconds of the commercial. That's where this technology fits into the pharmaceutical manufacturing ecosystem.
Okay, cool. Then one last question. What's your next step? So what's your next ask going forward from where you are?
Oh, so we're raising capital to, of course, allow us to take our working prototypes that we already have demonstrated. We've won SBR grants and actually taken the instrument to various pharmaceutical companies and done a working pilots. Our next step is to get our a beta prototype instrument made to full production scale. So it's made under CGMP manufacturing guidelines, and then start placing instruments in the manufacturing sites where they can use the technology.
Awesome. Thank you.
Super. David, thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate that. And next up, we have Roy from Cross Compute, developing software services for utility companies, outage tracking and improvements. So Roy, if your mic is off, please join us for your 60 seconds.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you fine. Go ahead.
All right. Digital transformation ignored our rural electric utilities. On a daily basis, our utilities are putting out fires, fixing outages as they happen because owners fail to see the true cost of not undergrounding a power line or not installing a microgrid. FEMA estimates that $6 are saved for every dollar spent on hazard mitigation. But our municipalities lack the data and tools to justify infrastructure investments. Our data tools help local planners prioritize upgrades using benefit cost analysis and help utility engineers communicate the true cost of not upgrading infrastructure to their community and government on an ongoing basis. Our market is the 250 rural electric co-ops that serve broadband internet. To boost agriculture and manufacturing, we need to invest in rural development by giving our rural communities the digital tools to plan their own infrastructure. Thank you.
Roy, thank you very much. Joy, I'm going to pop back up to you for the first question, please.
Okay, so help me. So I understand the problem and agree that there is a problem. Help me understand what does the local provider input into your system? Because if it's a SaaS tool, I'm assuming there is an online portal that they put data into. So give me a little bit of insight into how that works.
Well, most rural utilities, they're missing the first step, which is a digitized circuit map of their distribution line.
Right.
So we'd have to start from there, and we would plug in some of our existing stuff that we prototyped for DOE about 2 years ago so that they can sketch out their distribution line from their mobile phone. And primarily in a way that's very easy for a lot of the distribution line is stuck in a person who's been there maybe 30, 40 years, and that person is about to retire. So we need to make it easy for that person to sketch that circuit map as if they were drawing on paper.
Okay, so is the initial part then of what you're selling an engagement, an assessment of some sort?
The initial part would be working with them so the primary obstacle for most of these upgrades is people. It's not really technology.
Right.
It's not the cost. You've got some person who knows they need to upgrade it and they can't persuade the owner of the community that needs to be done. So the first step, I mean, although we could take the approach of doing as a consulting agency, a feasibility study, I think it'd be better instead of what we've learned is that people trust their local planners. Nobody likes an external consultant to tell the community how they should run their business or, build up their stuff. So we would have to work with a local planner and work with their workflow and show that our tools help enhance that local planner's ability to persuade their community or the utility. So we'd have to mesh into an existing process that a local planner already has. We can't just go in as a consulting firm.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joy. Mark, do you have questions for Roy?
Yeah, so Roy, do you focus more on the energy grid or the internet grid?
Energy. Internet is broadband. The reason for broadband is just because right now, as you know, there's a lot of rural areas without broadband internet. And so they happen to take advantage of the power line, the line and pole infrastructure to roll that out. Mm-hmm. But this is for, we're focused, I mean, most of our relationship, we've been making energy planning tools for over 15 years. And our relationship is with this, there's two major industry associations, one for municipal public power and another for co-ops. And that's how we've been, it's very hard to actually reach the co-ops unless it comes from a trusted source. So we have to work through the industry associations and their conferences.
So I've got some experience, building out wireless infrastructure in rural areas, and power was always an issue, getting it to specific, like water towers. We used to do that type of stuff. And we worked with, this is up in Maine, but there's a cooperative called ISO New England, and they have all the maps and everything that's laid out. Isn't there the the tools and right now through these cooperatives that you can see exactly where you can pick up electricity? I'm just basing on my experience.
Were these maps digitized first of all, and is it a circuit map?
Yeah, it's a website that we went to.
So from a technical perspective, so although a lot of utilities, they have GIS analysts, they still can't run some of the even open source software to do basic things like a power flow that you would need to do to figure out where to place your next battery, for example, just because it's different to have all of your poles and lines and relays and stuff geolocated. It's another thing to have everything in a single line circuit diagram. So there's still that missing link just because of the way the data is being captured, or in many cases, not even the infrastructure. They don't know where they know, it's just not in a digital format that we can run while the analytical tools on. So,
and so you're providing this data to the providers, right? In aggregate?
Yes,
okay.
There's a lot of ways to assume that data. For example, as you know, power line follows roads, and and there's a lot of other things that you can infer from the existing, in most cases, open data. So, and the existing software that's out there for, let's say, planning microgrids, you pretty much need a PhD to run it. So we want it, we've been iterating on with the development bank to reach a point where the communities can, it's really coming down to be really simple, where here's when you want to place a microgrid, for example, and then pulling in where the hospitals, what's the approximate load flow, figuring out peak, and just doing, maybe not down to persuade somebody. So the problem is persuasion. It's not the problem of having, you've got all kinds of technical software that can plan things to a T, but it's the issue of persuading that something is worth the investment. And to do that, you don't need something that's all down to the 5th decimal point. You can do that with a back of the hand calculation that's about 50 to 70% right in terms of the ballpark benefit cost. So that's what we're more aiming for, planning tools that simplify the planning process for a local planner.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I was long-winded.
No, that was a good answer. So, but I understand your business model. Are you going to do a subscription on this?
Yes. So the way we'd approach it is a 2-year subscription with a 90-day assessment period where they can check whether our tools integrate into their workflow.
Okay, thanks.
Very good, Roy. Thank you very much for joining us. Next up, we have Destination Better with Janet Craig and Barbara Anderson. Janet, thank you for joining us. Let me reset my timer quickly here and start as soon as you're comfortable.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Public companies are being pressured by investors to report environmental, social, and governance (ESG) risks, goals, and progress. It's estimated that ESG represents about 90% of the value of a company. And with 21,000 ESG manager jobs on LinkedIn, companies are really desperate to figure this out. ESG managers are hired to create and manage effective ESG strategies, but they're struggling. They are either hired in-house or as graduates without ESG or corporate experience, and usually as the only person in the company responsible for ESG, they face frustrated executives. With years of corporate and ESG experience, including 9 in our own ESG consulting firm, we know how to solve their problems. We've built an efficient, effective, step-by-step ESG management system with data tools, plug-and-play templates, and proven processes to accelerate change across the organization, add business value, and meet those growing investor expectations. The first iteration of our suite of tools is built in Microsoft Office with plans to automate as we progress. 13 of our tools are currently being used in 9 companies, one as large as the Fortune 10. And over the next 3 months, we plan on targeting US publicly held companies with $1 billion in revenue, leveraging our national women-owned certification with a goal of adding 20 new clients in the next year.
Okay, great. Janet, thank you very much. I believe we're back to Mark asking the first question this time.
So I'm sure, that I've seen a lot of ESG consulting companies. So what makes yours different?
That's a really good question. What makes us different is there are a lot of consulting firms. Usually they're consulting on a lot of the growth that we see right now is, I'll give you an example. PricewaterhouseCoopers has made a goal to hire 100,000 ESG managers in the next 10 years. Some of them are new hires. They've never had this role before. They don't understand and cannot understand the methodology, standards, and frameworks, all of the raters and rankers, how they work, what the challenges are of actually getting this job done in an organization. There are also lots and lots of ESG data tools out there that collect utility data, but they don't make it actionable. So if we had a new hire that came in day one, usually they have no idea what to do. Our product and our suite of tools allows us to take the investor inquiries that they're getting, company and industry specific, already pre-vetted material, financially material ESG impacts, and automate a roadmap for them, and then give them the tools and templates they need to engage across the business.
Good answer. So you are different. I think most people just talk about it, but you have tools and technology to do that. Are these tools that you have, are they API driven? Meaning, can they plug into other people's systems without them having to input a bunch of stuff?
Right. So we have at this time, no. However, we have identified a set of core rater ranker systems that we can build a tool to put the information into our system. The difference in our system and other people's systems is that those ESG data management tools that are out there to raise ESG scores usually are just gathering it and spitting it back out. Ours actually turn the request into an automated ESG roadmap that may go out for 3 years. So based on where the company is in their ESG journey, we know that there's low hanging fruit. We need to figure out what that is and give that ESG manager a roadmap for the company that also can go all the way up to the board of directors to approve certain things like policies and things like that. So we will use those connectors for the ones that are the most important. One of the other things that we've done inside our tool is we know which raters and rankers sell their data to other raters and rankers. So we know which ones to focus on. So for instance, a client may come to us and say, hey, we just got this ESG questionnaire and it's got 300 questions on it. It could be that there isn't another rater ranker out there that uses it. But similar questions are over here where we could be answering another database that maybe 10 people are buying that data. Well, we're going to stay focused over here. So we have a weighted scorecard that's built into the process as well.
Yeah, just as a side note, having finished a big automation project in the company, our company that I'm in, having an API first strategy, I think it would be helpful because, a lot of companies are moving that way to automate a lot of things, especially with the worker shortage we have now. So I would Google that API first and just think about that. So.
Yeah, well, I absolutely agree with you. I think the only way that we can actually meaningfully scale is to automate. We know what needs to happen in the background and we know which data is the most effective and what it needs to do. For us, it is actually automating the process of getting it in the tool. Yes.
So for us, like we would not use your tool if we heard you didn't have an API.
Got it.
Just any tool we use, it has to be that. So
good feedback. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Good questions, Mark. Joy, do you have questions for Janet?
I do. So I'm pretty familiar with this particular space, and with one of our companies, we work with a lot of boards of directors. I have a couple of questions. So first, how did you arrive at the 90% of the S&P 500's value is related to ESG?
That is really good. Okay, so I'm happy to send you the link to this report. We've been following it for years. It shows the value of the S&P 500 that's held in intangible assets. And that's same. So it's gone from, let's say, like in the 70s when we had hardware and we had things that were making things. So we had very tangible assets, property, plant, property, and equipment. Mm-hmm. Now we've got intangible assets. So maybe we have service model or we have a technology model. So a lot of those intangible assets are intellectual property, attracting and retaining talent, employee turnover,
I'm very familiar with the difference between intangible and tangible assets.
So I'm happy to send you the study, and it has graphed it since the 70s.
So it's actually 90% is tied to intangible assets.
Intangible assets.
Okay, not ESG. All right, got it. I'm like, okay. I'm like, because I was like, there's no way that number is right, but interesting. So I do have another question. So a lot like Mark, I would tell you that an API is a critical path item, hands down. Mm-hmm. As you're looking at how companies are handling digital transformation, et cetera. No company that is moving forward, and certainly no billion-dollar company, that will be a huge obstacle for you, no API. They've already invested so much money into the infrastructure that sits there today and the systems that are in place. Mm-hmm. And it is virtually impossible to rip out a tool that is embedded in a $1 billion plus company. It's not just the cost of your product or the cost they paid for that product. It is the retraining effort. It's all these other things and every other system that is built on top of that. So I think that's a key point. My guess is, since you said you're doing it in Microsoft Office today, that's not a difficult thing to implement as you move forward with your built out system. It's just how you architect the software that you're building. The other question I have for you is, I heard you say, like, hey, these are the things we have. 2 boards I serve on, I can tell you that the data you have as it relates to ESG wouldn't, one I serve on and one I work with, this data won't meet the ESG requirements they have. So the reason I'm saying that is, in one case, BlackRock is their primary investor, and they've given extremely specific criteria as it relates to their business that isn't going to come up in this normal mechanism. So my reason for saying that is there also needs to be a manual input for certain information on top of that. And then I have a question.
Okay.
So the roadmap, that's the most interesting thing out of all of this at the end of the day, I think. So how does that work today? Understanding that it can be far more automated once you build out your custom code, but how does it work as you're in what you're selling today?
And what we're doing today, so we may bring in, and it is currently manual, and we know that we need to automate that.
Okay.
We look at the largest shareholders, so BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard, Boston Partners, and they are very different in what they're focused on. As you know, we are highly aware of what BlackRock's expectations are. And then the rater rankers. So Moody's, Sustainalytics, MSCI, ISS, Glass Lewis, any expectations in those analysts where we think that we can actually move the needle on their scores. And so those are brought in. And sometimes that is a manual process because they're all a little different, especially Vigeo Iris, Moody's Vigeo Iris, very, very industry specific, aligned with the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, SASB. And so what happens is we look at that and we see, are there gaps? Are you not getting credit for things that you're already doing? Did the analyst just not see? So run through, find the gaps, and then where can we move the needle easily? And we can see that as experts in the space. But it's there are also processes that we've mapped out for an ESG manager to say, this is what you need to do first. Here's your automated ESG roadmap. Here's what you need to do first. Here's how to engage your board. We have plug and play templates for board updates. We do a lot of board of director updates.
Sure.
And things like that. So there is definitely a manual customized part of that, and it would have to be part of an onboarding right situation implementation. But there's also the just general disclosures that are expected.
And how do you license it today? So how are you licensing the tool? So there's obviously a professional services consulting engagement that goes along with this now.
Right.
That makes sense to me. How do you intend to license the tool, or how are you licensing the tool?
So right now we have looked at the amount of support we've given over the last almost 10 years to our clients and the number of hours, and it ends up being about 25% of a full-time employee. Yep. And so, and we've also looked at other tools that even at $30,000 a year only give you a view only thing, right? That is not productive, is not actionable. It's not what we need or want or desire. So our starting price, we're thinking, is around $35,000 a year with $35,000 a year with the implementation fee. And it would be paid upfront as an annual invoice, and then include updates. And if there are additional revenue streams underneath that for any kind of training or education, then we would provide that as well.
Actually, that's a very fair price. It might be low, actually.
Well, and I think that yes, Ken's like, of course it is. But I think that as we automate those processes, there's definitely room for upside there for sure.
No, but that's actually good. So I think I would tell you, if I were in your shoes, I would probably have an onboarding fee, and I would do a monthly subscription, but require an annual commitment. Because it's more palatable, and I would up my price by like 4x.
Okay. Thank you. We like that.
I seriously think an onboarding fee and $100,000 a year would be a very easy sell, quite frankly.
Okay.
Yep. Always chance to change your price as you learn more. Yeah. Thank you, Joy. I appreciate that. Thank you, Janet. I'm going to drop you back down to the audience and welcome our next speaker, Tom Lavey from SUAP. Tom, whenever this next slide gets up, Tom is going to be talking about a legal tech platform for filing small claims. Tom, go ahead. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. SUAP is an Israeli legal tech company that provides digital small claim platform for its users. Our journey begins when some time ago, I tried to file a small claim to court and realized that the current process has high litigation costs, long waiting times, and mostly lack digital access. And I discovered that I'm not alone in this problem. Over 2 million small claims lawsuits are filed in the United States each year. Because more than 30% of those cases are related to auto accidents, we envision a scalable B2B model and partnerships with US auto insurers. Our platform provides a simple, intuitive, and accessible solution for filing small claims from the laptop or mobile phone in a matter of minutes. Using data analytic tools, SUAP streamlines the filing process and provides insights to plaintiffs, insurance companies, and law firms. After a successful pilot in Israel and having approval and support from the Florida court systems, we are now seeking strategic partners and funding to expand to the US. Thank you very much, and I look forward for your question.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate it, especially how late it is where you are right now for joining us.
Yes.
We are going to go back to Joy for the first question. Do you have questions for Tom?
Yeah, so pretty quick. So he's absolutely right. And the process in the United States is a manual process, which is part of the problem.
Sure.
So you literally have to go down to the courthouse and write a check or give your credit card and work through this process. It's a bit annoying in today's environment. So how are you? So I have two questions. What does it cost? Right? How are you pricing it? And how are you going to market it?
All right, so the pricing is $80 per claim. If you go to a lawyer, for example, it would cost you $500 or more, maybe $1,000, depends. And our main distribution channels are actually the insurance companies. And because currently we work in Israel with the largest insurer as a design partner, Phoenix, they called. And what we are doing, we are partnering with the insurance company as a partner to give SUAP as a solution for their customers in cases that their customers cannot activate the insurance. For example, in a car accident, the damage is very small. I think in the US you call it a fender bender, all those small accidents that are very small amounts, let's say $500. And you want to activate the insurance, and the insurance to activate the insurance it costs $6,000, and then the premium rising also next year because you have accidents on your policy. So in a lot of cases, the insurance cannot give you a solution. So what we do, we give SUAP as a platform for the insurance to give it to the customers for whatever reason if they have a case that they cannot provide a solution.
So great. So I think for a consumer that's fine. I'm going to offer you a suggestion too.
Okay.
So in Florida, it's $40 to file small claims. That's the fee. If I go down to the courthouse and I write a check, it's $40. And that's up to $5,000. So
8,000. It's now it's $8,000. It was 5,000.
Did COVID make it 8,000? Okay, fine. So it's been a while since I had to do that. So 8,000, perfect. I would say that there's another way you could market this, and that the reason I brought up the fee is I think that there's certain counties across the country that are more astute at this type of thing. I think you could go in and offer a white label solution that county could leverage and upsell to that. So if they're charging $40, and instead of charging 40, they could make it a convenience fee and it's 60. And if you're taking a piece of that, you would address a much larger market. Your cost to get to the decision maker would be way smaller. So I'm not saying don't do the B2C scenario, but I'm saying this might be a way to get a really big foothold quickly. And if you've already built out the platform, it would be a relatively low cost way to do it because you're dealing with the county administrators to work for it. So it's just a suggestion. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I think so as well.
Thank you, Joy. Mark, do you have a question for Tom?
I do. So is this an app or a website, Tom?
It's a web app. It's a website. You can access it from the mobile phone or the computer, but you don't download it from the store.
All right. That was, I thought my advice was going to be make it a web app.
Right.
So good
Yes,
good answer on that.
we started with an app and we realized that for this kind of usage, people will not download from the store.
No, it makes no sense. So, and what about the, there are quite a few different competitors out there. Actually, I looked at doing this to file a small claim several years ago, and there was a app called Sue Anyone. And it did the same thing. I didn't do it, but and then I Googled it, and I see like 4 or 5 companies that have websites that allow you to go do this online. So how are you different? And doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. Google was the 13th search engine, but how do you are going to be successful in the marketplace?
Okay, 2 main things differentiate us from those companies. Mostly our competition are law firms that their front end is digital, meaning that they have a simple website, but the back end is manual, meaning that there is an office, and then their costs are much higher than what we can provide, because we connect straight to the court system, the digital court system, through API. So this is why our costs are very low, because and we can give a very small price. Also, we have we are not only sending claims to court, we also connect to the database of the court system, and we are able to extract all the historical claims, and we are able to analyze and create statistics and analytics that are good for the plaintiffs. For example, success chance against a certain company in a certain claim.
So no one else does that right now.
No, nobody does that in this format. We also can recognize clusters of similar claims against a certain defendant, and then we can, let's say, for example, that you make a claim against a company A, and I do the same thing a week later, and Ken does it a week later. We see short period of times, and then there is the same claim against the same party, and we can suggest an option for a class actions claim. So we have also this technology with us that uses the database of the court system and gives added value to the plaintiff.
So I would suggest, this is as an idea, you may already be doing this, but your marketing focus should be on your AI analyzing whether you have a good claim or not, because that's the biggest problem. And just put an ad out there. You want to sue you have a lawsuit or a small lawsuit, and is it worth it? Click here and we'll tell you. And then sell them the app after that, get them involved. Once it says it's worth it, say, hey, we have a thing to streamline it, because it's not something somebody thinks. But I think the first thing my contractor, and this really happened, where he never winterized my house, and it froze. It was a summer place, and I had $13,000 worth of damage, and I wanted to sue him, but basically it was too expensive with the lawyers. But my thing was, where does the threshold, Right. And so I think that's a lot of interest in that message. So I'll leave it there.
Yeah, I'm writing it down. It's a good suggestion.
Yeah. I mean, that's the consideration. Should I do this? And then you make it easy. I'm using Sue app.
Okay.
I think I'd pick a different name, actually.
All right. Good feedback. Good questions. Thank you both. Tom, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have Ian with Zing Drone Solutions. Let me reset my timer. And Ian, whenever you're ready and whenever your slide comes up. There we go.
All right. Let's face it. Up until recently, drones have been more buzz than business. Today, there are over 300,000 commercial drones registered in the United States performing a variety of advanced operations. With this massive influx of drones, the Federal Aviation Administration has decided to create new regulations that will force all commercial operators to add a digital license plate to their aircraft by 2023 that will allow both the public and law enforcement agencies to identify them. Through customer discovery interviews, we have identified common problems in the enterprise drone industry. They need a better way to track their aircraft, comply with digital license plate requirements, and avoid collisions with other drones in their vicinity. That's why we're launching the Zing Remote ID broadcast module. This plug-and-play device fulfills the FAA's legal requirements for digital license plate and also enables operators to track, monitor, and deconflict their fleets. Last month, we launched our testing site here in Tampa Bay, where we are performing real-world operations to build and test the module that will enable the drone operations of tomorrow. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to your questions.
All right, excellent. Ian, thank you for the update there. Mark, you have question number 1 this time.
So Ian, how long have you been flying drones?
So I got my Part 107 drone license 3 years ago, and everyone on the Zing team has their Part 107 license to fly drones commercially. But yeah, about 3 years I've been flying drones commercially.
So it looks like you're building a dashboard for all aspects of managing a fleet. Is that correct? It's not individual drones, right?
Yeah, so companies who want to use our Zing Flight Hub dashboard, this Zing Remote ID module plugs into that dashboard and enables companies to monitor all of the drones on their network and all of the pilots who are flying those drones to make sure they're flying safely.
Okay, so it's kind of like a fleet management system, is analogous to, truckers, where they all have apps now that keep track of everybody. Would that be analogous to it?
Exactly. Fleet management, that's exactly right.
So do you have anybody that has done, fleet management software on your team?
So on our team, we have, not directly on our team in the past have done fleet management software. Personally, I've developed a lot of iOS applications, and we have someone on our team who does web applications. So this is a first for our core team to develop a fleet management software, but it's something that we're confident that we'll be able to do because we've utilized some of the other ones that are already on the market and they haven't really met our needs. So we've found this problem and want to develop a solution that's very user-friendly, just user-intuitive, and not extremely complicated to get onboarded for a lot of these corporations that want to start doing drone operations.
Yeah, I think I would recommend, there's a company in Tampa, they were a customer of ours. It was on the IT telephony side, but I don't remember the name even, but they had one of the largest fleet management software systems. Just having somebody like that there's so many lessons you'd learn just on how to deploy it, how to manage it, how to scale your company, stuff like that. So recommend that be one of your first hires after you get funded.
For sure. Sounds good.
Yeah, I think I know who you're talking about, Mark. So we'll make those connections later. Joy, do you have questions for Ian?
Yes, it's interesting. I agree with somebody in fleet management, and either a hire would be good. If you could find someone who maybe would sit on your advisory board, there's a lot of different ways you can make those kind of things happen. Depending on what they have going on, but somebody who can make those introductions and somebody who's got experience with how that gets deployed, how it's priced. There's just a lot of things in there. Are you licensing this per seat? Is that how it's being licensed today?
So currently we're selling the remote ID module as a individual piece of hardware that is a plug and play attachment to the drone. And then the actual Zing Flight Hub that they fly on, or that they can manage all of their drones and pilots on, that's going to be an enterprise SaaS product, unless a company wants to integrate it into their operations, similar to like the Walmart and Drone Up deal, where they're scaling to 30 locations by the end of 2023. We will be integrating, we will license our software to the corporation so that they can fly with it.
So is that a license for, I guess, how does that break down? So is there a upfront fee or a baseline fee and then X amount per drone, let's use it from a drone perspective, or is it just per seat? So 1 to 10 drones is X, 10 to 100, that kind of thing.
So we're thinking with like the enterprise level customers who have franchises or multiple locations across the United States, we will have a per location licensing fee. So they will be able to integrate whichever hardware they want to in terms of the drones and the infrastructure. And they would have to purchase that hardware and infrastructure separately. And we would license our software for management per location, and also provide trained pilots through our network. And this would all be plugged into with the remote ID modules where they could track all of their drones.
Okay, does that line, so next question. I know there's some companies that do mixed use, which include drones, fleet management. Is there another fleet management company out there that's providing something similar to what you're providing?
So do you mean from a sort of a different industry? So say like electric vehicles, combining something into
so
that?
there's organizations like, I think one's called Fleet.io, another one is like called Tennis. So I'm familiar with the logistics industry, which is why I'm familiar with some of the other fleet management tools that are out there. I know that one of our clients has one that has added drone management to the current fleet management tool they have. But these guys have a handful of drones, but they have a lot of other equipment in their fleet from a service management perspective. They happen to be a government contractor.
Okay. Yeah, and one of the companies that we've talked to recently is UPS Flight Forward. It's the aviation arm of UPS. And of course, they have multiple vehicles, electric vehicles, all kinds of last mile testing that they're doing. So this system, this Zing Flight Hub system, is something that they have expressed interest in as something that they could integrate into their workflow, both for operations from the truck to the home and for just general last mile operations directly from retail locations is something they might be interested in getting into.
Okay, cool. I think it's an interesting solution. I would think that, if you get, in addition to what Mark's saying, I think the other thing I would look at is the UPS analogy you just mentioned. I think you're going to find a lot of companies that are going to fall into that, a lot of large companies that will fall into that. So there may be an opportunity there for you to look at this as a white label product that gets integrated into their system and what the fee for that would be. So that would be like a site license plus. And you're basically providing them an SDK, right? A software development kit to plug what you've built into that. Fees for an SDK plus the license fee, like an SDK license is probably about 25 grand per customer on top of what you would charge for your ongoing license fee and then a cost per device that's on the network.
Okay, that sounds very interested. And SDKs, APIs, those are all things that we would like to integrate with in the future. So, but yeah, we've also received we're in talks with another company called Skyway, and they're about an LOI for integrating this into their fleet management system for drones. So we're definitely interested in integrating with other companies however we can.
Awesome, thank you.
Ian, thank you very much. Appreciate it. I'm dropping you back down to the audience. And I want to thank everyone that's presented and has participated in this cohort. It's been fun for me. I hope it's been fun for you. And as we did last time, we did a showcase. We're going to dive into an alumni update. So I've asked Teja Sweeney from CognoSketch, who was in our last cohort, to come back and give us a little bit of a glimpse of what it's like to have graduated from the program and moved on into the big bad marketplace of talking to customers and trying to get traction. So Tej, thank you very much for joining us. Please give us an update.
Sure. Thanks, Ken, for having me back here. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teja Sweeney, and I'm the founder of Little Town Solutions. Our flagship product is called CognoSketch SS, which is a platform for EdTech. We use it to identify root causes of learning difficulties in young children using some visual cognitive analytics, and we also offer remedial actions for any deficits that we find. The users of CognoSketch Assess are educators, very specifically teachers in special education, and some others that are associated with that ecosystem, like school psychologists, there's occupational therapists, and parents of young children. So visual processing is at the foundation of the learning process. And given that 1 in 5 individuals have learning or attention issues, our product has been designed to not only assess any visual processing and motor function deficits, but also offer deeper, more comprehensive insights into a child's thought process and their abilities. So as Ken mentioned, I was a part of the previous cohort during which we learned to improve our messaging mainly and narrow down our target market. We had an ongoing software trial back then, and the Accelerator was immensely helpful in improving our customer engagement and acquisition process. It really helped us, define that. So now CognoSketch is a product that is deeply rooted in empathy for those who learn differently. So after we graduated from the class, we continued to reach out and engage with more users. As an example, we recently helped a child with ADHD who was in middle school having writing difficulties. And owing to his hyper focus due to the ADHD. And we were also able to offer help and insights and guidance to parents who had a child who had mild cerebral palsy. Now, these are very recent events, so I thought I'd mention that. And it's these kinds of successes that keep us motivated and in our process of continual research and improvement through these feedbacks that we get from our users. So we are in the process of preparing the product for a full-scale launch. The front-end app will be coming soon to the App Store for more widespread access to parents also who can download it and use it in the convenience of their homes. So that's where we are at right now as far as the update is concerned. Thanks again, Ken, for your mentorship and for having me here today. And many congratulations to the members of this cohort, and I wish you all the success.
Thank you, Tej. Good to have you back. Any significant aha moments after the accelerator that you would like to share?
Oh, several. Where do I start? So main thing is the product market fit, and who is most invested in the problem. Just identifying that. We had narrowed that down significantly during the cohort, and we narrowed it down to the special education teachers. But within the purview of that also comes the school psychologists whose stakes are very high. There is also occupational therapists. So we have been reaching out to these people who are very interested in the product, and that'll actually help and validate their own practice. So there is that. There is also parents who are, who may not have access to the kind of resources or teachers who may guide them in the right direction. And they are scratching their heads wondering why their child is struggling at school. So we have changed our strategy a little bit to be able to, initially we were only planning to sell in bulk to schools and to learning centers. We had to pivot that a little bit to be able to make it accessible to individual parents who may be homeschooling.
Okay, very good. I hope you don't mind me sharing, but I know you ran into someone when you were presenting this at Synapse who was a medical professional or a therapist, and
Yes.
their comment was that you're trying to put them out of business, which to me is a really good sign that you're onto some product market fit. So, Joy or Mark, any comments or questions for Tej?
I think it's awesome. I thought it was great when she presented the last time. So I'm very happy to see that she's making really good progress. I think it's something that's needed in the market. And we discussed before, I have friends who have 2 children who kind of fit into this category, actually a couple of sets of friends. So I'm very happy to see it out there.
Absolutely. I like Ken mentioned at the summit, a lot of people came by and said, "Where were you when I was a child?" So, that kind of validates the widespread nature of the learning disabilities, not just a disability, just difficulties in general that we need to address.
Congratulations, Tej, on your success. Have you considered renaming your entire company CognoSketch? So,
Yes.
all right. I think that would be good. We're having some problems because we got two names in the company I'm in now, and it's causing some confusion. So,
Oh,
you know,
absolutely.
one is the product name and the other is the company name. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna just get that sorted out right before the launch.
yeah.
All part of the journey. All part of the journey. Absolutely. Tage, thank you very, very much for joining and for continuing to be part of the program. We appreciate that.
Thank you, Ken.
All right. So as we come to a closing, I want to remind everyone that's in the audience that the success of these companies is not determined just on the pitch that they offer here today, but on their ability to deliver on those promises, to engage with customers, and to continue to be part of the tech community. I want to thank the panelists that joined us today, Mark and Joy, for their presentation, for Chris and his leadership, and Tanya, Mary, and Joan as well for their support of the program. I would thank Pinellas County Economic Development for being a sponsor and backer of the program. And just remind everyone that we provide a number of resources for startup companies and early stage founders. There's the Accelerator program, which we offer about twice a year, but we also have office hours the last Thursday of every month. And we have the Co-Starters program, which Chris leads a couple of times a year, and lots of opportunities for people to come in and let us help you vet your ideas, to talk about things, to brainstorm, and to connect you with other people in the community that can help you with this journey as a first-time or a repeat founder. So I want to encourage you to engage with the Innovation Center and at any possible time that you have questions about something that you're thinking about, a business that you're starting, a technology or a product that you think is worth discussing. With that being said, we are almost exactly a year away from opening the new building, and we invite you to ask questions about the new building. And if you're interested in space in the new building or participating and supporting the new building, now would be a good time to start connecting with us as we map out the inside of that building and reserve space. So with that, I want to thank everyone for joining us today. If you're interested in participating in an accelerator, in coaching, or in our monthly office hours, I encourage you to contact me directly or give us a call. You will catch Joan or Mary at the front desk, or you can drop an email to info@tbinnovates.com and engage with us around whatever your big next venture is going to be. With that, again, my name is Ken Evans. I'm the Managing Director of the Accelerator program, and I thank you for joining us today.